let's get into it. So this is my testimony of many stories of the events that have happened in my life, especially over the last 10 years. On July the 12th, 2018, I'm watching Jim Jordan do a congressional hearing with Peter Strzok, former FBI, and they were discussing what was being said in 2016. This was prior to Donald Trump actually becoming president. This is when he was still running. And we've all seen the video now. Probably if you haven't, you can go look it up. But Jordan kept asking him about his text to Lisa Page about how is it that you were going to hope that Hillary Clinton won 100 million to 0. Your actual quote was, God, I hope she wins Hillary 100 million to nothing. Now this was going back and forth, but one of the time Strzok read that back out loud, the message given to me was, that's how he died. That's how it happened to him. And I knew what it meant because in my other testimony videos, which you'll see, starting in 2016, this will make more sense. But I want to start it today because I was telling everybody from that day forward, 2018, in July the 12th, that one of Donald Trump's rallies was going to be a staged event to make his followers, the Republican Party or MAGA, whoever, as a scapegoat for what's going on in the country, what's wrong with the country. It was going to be about them and those people, because the narrative is going to be that they're out of control, they're gun toters and all this type of stuff, and these are, as we know them now, insurrectionists. But that wasn't the term, and January the 6th wasn't the term then as well. So what it was explaining the gospel of Mark, Luke, and John, and Matthew, about how the crucifixion of Yeshua was a staged event. It did happen, but all the Jews did not want Yeshua crucified. He had thousands and thousands of followers. Knowing then, after 6 months of being deeply involved in studying the Bible, I knew the stories. I was like, yes. He fed 5,000 with loaves of bread and the fish. He fed 4,000. He healed. He saved people from death, resurrected them from the death. Lazarus. All these stories were happening and coming true. So he had, again, thousands and thousands of followers. So when it come time for Pontius Pilate to come out and ask who have grievances against this man talking about Yeshua the Messiah, everyone in the crowd yelled, yes, crucify him, crucify him. That's a controlled group. Back in the day, you couldn't get Jews to agree on anything, especially this bunch. So why was it a controlled group, and how was it a controlled group? This was on a Wednesday. This wasn't the 3 days and 3 nights that Catholicism has come up with since Good Friday and all that. That every bit of that came from the Middle Ages. Knowing the Hebrew Bible and their calendar and the Passover, when the Passover comes, it's a special Passover. John speaks of it in his gospel. He says this was a special Passover. This wasn't the Saturday traditional Passover. So this was on a Wednesday. The arrest was in a Wednesday morning, our Tuesday night. And then they arrested him illegally. They went through the court systems illegally. The Sanhedrin was corrupt. The Romans were involved because they're all making money hand over fist with the temple guards and the temple money and the exchange of Roman coins to temple money. They were charging a percentage. So what the Jewish believers were turning in and giving to Yahweh, a percentage of it, these people were skimming off the top. Exactly what our politicians and people are doing today. So when Jim Jordan is examining Peter Strzok's text, and Peter Strzok says, God, I hope Hillary wins 100 million to 0, it's the same scenario. So from that day forward, I read that coup, which it was a coup. We all know that now. I at least hope people do, that these people orchestrated the lies against Yeshua to do nothing but they started out just defaming him and saying he's a liar and he's blaspheming against Yahweh and all that, just so they wouldn't have followers. If Yeshua would have been able to speak and preach during the Passover, on that particular Passover, they would have been out of business. Their corruption scheme would have been over with. The Pharisees would have no longer control of the people. Yeshua was teaching people, have self-control. You don't need the Pharisees to teach you this. Read this for yourself. Read these scriptures for yourself and read them in this light, that these people are trying to control you. The high priest, they turned it in from their original position to controllers, oppressors. They were rich, they were wealthy. And as Yeshua said, they like for themselves to be heard. They like to have their long dangly cords attached to them. They love being something to Rome. So Yeshua had to die. And these people were willing to do it. They wanted to do it. They needed to do it. So they had to do it on this last night. They had tried several attempts. So what you have to understand is, on that Thursday of the Passover meal, if you were in Gentiles or with Gentiles or around Gentiles, you were unclean. You couldn't be with other Jews and have the Passover meal, and they all wanted to be in the festivals and the feasts in Jerusalem. That's why they were all there. Now, while all this illegality is going on, the court systems in the Jewish Times read just this, that all court systems were held during the day. Witnesses had to, two witnesses had to confirm what was being stated, or it all had to be thrown out. None of that mattered. They rushed him through the system to get him to get a verdict of crucifixion before just around daylight. So all the other Jews that was surrounding Jerusalem were either still asleep or still eating before they could come in there and find out what really happened. All this was done in the dark of the night. And you have to understand one more thing, that Barabbas, Bar in that term, is the son of Abbas, which is Abba, father. In the old scriptures, Yeshua was his name. Yeshua was his name. Excuse me. So you had standing up there Yeshua the Messiah and Yeshua Barabbas. So when Pontius Pilate tried 3 times to figure out why these people, knowing that this zealot, which is what Josephus called them in his book, if you go read it, they used a dagger and killed Roman guards, Roman officials, Roman governors. It's the same group. They were part of the high priest who didn't think the Pharisees were being strong enough. They wanted more stoning. They wanted more beatings, more whips, more lashes. That's who this group was. And they were killing high priests. Pontius knew this, and that's why it was like, we've arrested this guy and his 2 cohorts, which they were not thieves, as the Bible says. That was what the language was changed in the mid-ages. That's why we got to learn Koine Greek, New Testament, Hebrews, and Aramaic for the Old Testament to get the original versions before they were convoluted in the mid 1100 to 1800 during kings and popes and Catholicism's rule. Who was there? So they couldn't go in and see Pontius. He had to come out to them. That's the reason he said he kept coming out to them. Well, doing that, the Romans and the Roman guards who still wanted this corruption to continue because they were making money as well off of these exchanges. So not only was the money changers making money, the Romans were making money. So when all this went down, the Roman guards were keeping any other Jews out, and they knew by the dialect who the Jews were. They knew who to keep out. There was the one group loved Yeshua, and another group hated him because they were convinced, the high priest convinced one group that he was a blasphemer, that he was a liar. Kind of like today. You've got one party who's done nothing for 10 years but claim somebody was whatever without proof. And if there was proof, they lied about it. They made it up. Well, that was what was going on then. So before what we know is January 6th, starting on that July 12th, 2018, when the words, "That's what happened to him," came to me, and I already knew the stories inside and out, I was like, I see it, and it's going to happen again. Because what happens over years and years and years and decades, it doesn't matter. People who are in control, they don't want to lose their power, they don't want to lose their prestige, and they don't want to lose that ruling over people. They love it. They soak it up. That is what we're doing with our politicians today. Both sides. Both sides. Don't fool yourself. I've been teaching, preaching, giving speeches about this for this very reason. Because what happened then will continue to happen because people will not give up their purse, their money, and their power. So Pontius kept asking, is there anyone out here who does not hold grievances against Yeshua, your Messiah? And they kept saying, no, crucify him, because that was an organized group. It was an organized crowd of who they wanted to be there. It was Yeshua Barabbas, his zealots, his family members. That's who was allowed there. The high priest and other priests were allowed in. The temple guards were allowed in. It wasn't thousands of Jews there. It wasn't like everyone was there. It was a small group that could fit in around the area where Pontius Pilate, his balcony, his stoop was, where he could come out and speak to them, because they could not come in again because over the Passover meal the next day. So from that, again, July 12th, 2018, up until 2 weeks before what we know now is January 6th, I would tell anybody that was listening that wanted Trump's rallies, there's going to be an event there. There's going to be agitators in there. There's going to be, and now we all know that, but no one was saying this in 2018, 19, and 20 until January 6th happened. And then everyone's like, oh, Antifa was there, and these people are there. I was like, yeah, CIA, FBI, these people instigated this. And I knew it, and I was claiming it then. 2 weeks prior to January 6th, I had a sibling over at my house. I have, before COVID, this is part of another testimony that I can discuss in more detail. I converted a horse barn, a goat barn, into a congregational meeting hall to where our ecclesia, people called out by Yahweh, could gather. Again, I was told they're going to shut you down. You're not going to be able to go to your churches. You're not going to be able to go visit. You're not going to be able to do all this stuff. I didn't have any clue of how they were going to do it, but I knew I had a short period of time to do it. So in 6 to 8 months, I converted this over into where people could hang out. And then, lo and behold, COVID hit in February of 2020. And then the lockdowns. By the time the lockdowns came, I had my congregational meeting hall, church building, completed to where we could go inside. So 2 weeks prior, I was finishing up to put heating and air in there because we'd been meeting without heat and air because winter hadn't hit yet. And so 2 weeks prior, I was putting in heating and air, and my sibling was there, and his coworker called him on the phone. And my sibling had already told me that one of his co-workers was going to Trump's rally. And when he called, I could hear him on the phone. He was like, my sibling put him on speakerphone. I could hear him, oh man, this is great. This is the greatest thing ever. I can't believe all the people are here. We're high-fiving, we're hugging, it's peaceful, we're all loving. This is great. I took the phone. I said, listen, there's potential, and it's probably going to be happening today because there's not any more time left. I didn't know they were going to have another meeting on January the 6th over the election votes. I didn't know that was happening yet. But I knew time was running out, and just like the Wednesday, they had run out of time to shut Jesus and his preaching and teaching down, or he would take over. They would believe him, and Rome would be like, well, why are we messing with these high priests? They're not following them. They're following him. And the high priest couldn't have that. Just like the Democrats could not have Trump coming in there and stirring things up, showing their abuse of power and greed and all this type of stuff. So this was in, again, 2018. So, but now we're up to 2020, right before January. The election was over. It was 2020. And I think it was December the 14th or 19th, whatever that one was, on that Saturday. So the phone call. I'm telling my sibling's co-worker, listen, don't fight with anybody. There's going to be instigators there. Don't run into any buildings. If there's gunfire, run. If there's fights, run. Get out of there. He goes, no, man, no, you wouldn't believe how great it is. This is great. It's peaceful. I said, I understand that now. I said, but there's going to come a point where there's going to start being shoving and pushing, and then someone's going to pull a gun, and then all this type of stuff, because I really was under the impression that more guns are going to be involved. Come to find out, there was one, the officer that shot the lady. But he was like, all right, man, yeah. If anything happens, I won't get involved. Well, on that day, nothing happened. It was peaceful. Just as like the one on January 6th would have been if there wasn't instigators there. If the Democrat Party hadn't failed in their job on purpose. For 3 years, almost, I was telling the story and played it out how it was going to happen, because it happened to Yeshua the exact same way. It was a staged event. Now, whether you believe me or not, I care not, because I know the facts, and I have all of this written down in books and in journals that I was writing, because I was getting messages that I had to write everything down, and then I was needing to shoot videos to record it. So then there would actually be timestamps of stuff that I'm saying. I've talked about other things, and in my testimony, we'll go back to 2016 to know where it all started, and what made sense, and the understanding of who the Spirit of Yeshua is, and how I was receiving it, and how I was supposed to share, and I did. Now here's the part, and this is why I have a lot of burden and stress and bags under my eyes from lack of sleep, is knowing and seeing stuff and telling people, and no one ever saying or planning ahead, because my theme, my message has been plan accordingly. Plan for what's coming. The silver spiking, I've been talking about that for 5 years. The collapse of the dollar, 9 years. It's not going to happen overnight, but I kept telling everyone, go get you land, go get you some chickens, be able to raise a garden, to be self-sufficient, because all of this is coming, and it's still coming. They're just messing with silver and gold right now, making their own profits off of it. After January 6th, almost 3 years of telling everybody, almost per detail, what was going to happen, I didn't get a call from my sibling. I didn't get a call from his coworker or any of the other people I'd been telling. That, like, how did you know that? Because I've been teaching the Bible. I don't do sermons, I do teachings. What's actually in the Bible, and how Catholicism railroaded it and made it out of, again, a hierarchy. And that's all the high priest and the temple guards, and now Judaism and Israel and Catholicism. They've built a hierarchy. The Baptist ministry, a hierarchy. Every one of these so-called religions who think they have the way have built a hierarchy, that you're defending a hierarchy and not the actual words and reading it for yourself. And I know people aren't reading it for yourself, because I didn't. For 21 years, I never like broke into it. I would try reading it, and it would be difficult. But in 2018, all of that changed. But prior to that, 2016 is a testimony I will tell you. Why am I telling you this today? Because the Jews did crucify Yeshua. Not all the Jews. It never fails. It absolutely never fails. Not all the Jews. It was this group. It was this individual groups who lied about everything about Yeshua and his teaching to keep themselves in power. No one's doing it more word for word, verbatim, than the Democrat Party is. So I don't hate all the Democrats. I don't hate anyone, to be honest with you. They're misguiding people to keep their power. Now the Republicans, they're doing the same thing. It's just a different way. They're doing it so they'll stay rich, not so much keep in power. So all these people are working together so they'll keep their power, keep their money, and keep their influence. And that's it. So I'm telling you this today, as I've been stating for 9 years. Plan accordingly and understand that Yahweh, our Creator, is real. Yeshua is alive. And those books of the Bible in their original form, Hebrew, Aramaic, and Koine Greek, are real, and it's their characteristics. Now, as my testimony goes on, I'll discuss with you science, DNA, same thing. We've been lied to. Evolution, lies. Why? To protect a certain way or a certain group of people. So they'll keep their power. And I can lead you, and I can show you. I can't lead you. I didn't mean to say that. I can show you. But I can't lead you anywhere. You have to do these studies, these findings for yourself. And know that in the dark ages, the popes, the kings, ran the religion as authoritarian and told people, you are not worthy. You're beneath God. But us, we are the go-between. We are to raise our hands and pray to the Lord because we are worthy. We have joy. We have hope, true hope. Not I hope it's not going to rain. True hope of eternal life. And once you have hope or known of eternal life, this world doesn't matter. Everything we're arguing about doesn't matter. So thank you. And I hope you'll watch the rest of my testimony and my stories that I'm telling you, because they are my testimony. They are in fact true. And they happen just as I described them. So thank you.